What is up, my ninjas, and welcome back. I am here with another quick video. It may be longer. I figured today I would just chill out and talk about these guys who I've had for a minute, and then I can get into some other stuff down the road. I am actually just chilling, keeping things easy. Today is my birthday, and I am glad to be here. I managed to get the day off, so I figured, you know what better way to spend some of my time than to talk about some stuff that I really like. I have a lot to say about the stuff, but it's stuff I like. Man, Super 7. Okay, so I got these a while back. These are the Masters of the Universe, Super 7, Heroic Defender of Eternia, or Rebel Leader He-Man, I'm sorry, God Skeletor in gold, and the Dark Despot Skeletor. And these are based on the original designs, the concept art, by William Stout. William Stout was the designer who created all these designs. He had a really cool style. It was real simple in comparison to like today's concept art, my work, other people's work, but it was kind of classic. I've actually seen a lot of his work over the years, and his comic book work is dope. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about these. Now, you guys know I have a very distinct stance when it comes to Super 7. I'm not a fan. I feel like they make overcharged versions of retail figures, and it pisses me off. Or figures from other lines, by other companies, and then they charge a premium even though they're really reusing, those same parts. I mean, like, you see this figure. This is a MOTU buck, if you don't believe me, here's another MOTU figure. It's MOTU. It's 100%, 100% the same body type. I mean, obviously this is the human body type without the, fur and stuff, but you can see it's the same buck. You want more explanation, more example, more proof? I will use Vicor to actually have him nearby. Try to get him off the horse. Can we get off the horse, sir? There you go. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Mine is a custom, so he's got more crap on him. But you'll see exactly what I'm talking about when I stand him up next to He-Man. Of course, the He-Man figure is a little taller, but you can see the musculature is the same, the arms same, just different wrists because they were new parts that were sculpted. But it's the same. It's not different enough to warrant $50 for this and $35 for that. This came from Mattel, who created He-Man. This came from Super 7. Why are we paying more to Super 7 for, Mattel's handiwork? It doesn't make sense. And people will say, oh, it's licensing, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. No, it's the fact that they could. It's plain and simple. And we keep on falling for it. And you keep having these haves who are cool with spending more because of nostalgia. It's nostalgia, nostalgia. And we keep ending up in this situation where we're spending more for less. And I'm not about that. I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. I'm not going to justify it. And if I can avoid it, I will avoid it. I don't think it's a cool, cool problem to have, so to speak. We should not have to be paying extra for our figures. It doesn't make sense, And we're not the business, so we shouldn't have to be worried about the way that the business makes its money. The business has to make it attractive for us to want to buy what they make for the prices that they offer it at. And $50 a pop for these. I mean, luckily, how did I get these? I think I got these when we finished paying bills with our stimulus checks from earlier. or did I do free? Maybe it was a combination. I did some freelance and I had some extra left over, and I also had used the stimulus. We probably used the whole stimulus check for bills, knowing us, you know. But yeah, these guys were fairly expensive, and I don't think you get as much as people like Toy Bro and others made it seem. You know. Now, don't get me wrong. I have this weird spot in my heart for the movie and the details of the movie, but I also read the original script, and there are things that you're going to hear me make reference to when I read the file cards to these that would have made the movie better. So in my mind, these are the elements that happened, as opposed to what we saw with a story that took place on Earth for little reason. You know, there's a connection to Earth, but we shouldn't have a whole movie that takes place there. That's kind of dumb. So I mean, and if it's going to take place on Earth, it better be apocalyptic as fuck. Like, you know what I mean? They're, because of the Eternians coming to Earth and waging their war on Earth, it should be like the end of the fucking world, because there's magic and there's crazy tech and there's all this stuff that would just jack up the world. You know what I mean? And they didn't go there, but the original plot did. And I would have loved to have seen that. But I like that movie for kind of semi-nostalgic reasons. I'm not a hardcore nostalgia porn person like so many people are with everything they buy. Nostalgia. Nah, there's certain things that I want. You know what I mean? Certain things I want. Like me, I grew up on Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man, not Spider-Boy. So when these guys came out, I was like, yep, I have to get them. Same thing with the PS4 version. I had to get them because that's the Spider-Man I read about for most of my childhood, you know, into my adulthood. I'm not down with, you know, Spider-Boy on the big screen. I'm not a fan of that. It bothers me. He's annoying because he's a kid. And all the things that I identify with that, you know, were part of the Spider-Man mythos, they're all gone. And that's annoying because Spider-Man is far more interesting than the little boy that they're giving us, you know, as the representation of Spider-Man for this era. It's kind of lame. I mean, when you really think about it, it's like, wow, that's it. That's what you've chosen to. That's how you've chosen to embody Spider-Man. But anyway, you know, it's not nostalgia only. You know what I mean? It's the fact that he is Spider-Man and he's the man. This also goes back to that. I'm an action junkie. I grew up on action movies. Dolph Lundgren is one of my action heroes from childhood all the way to now, because he's still doing it. I mean, to varying degrees of success, but he's still doing it, you know? And I love those kinds of films. Even the bad ones have some element that's fun for me. And, you know, I just enjoy seeing that. Now, the way that this figure came out, it's pretty dope. I have him right now with his alternate head, so that you can see, you know, this looks like Dolph Lundgren, you know, from certain angles more so than others. Like that looks like Dolph Lundgren, young Dolph Lundgren. That definitely looks like Dolph Lundgren. You know what I mean? And you could tell they were kind of slick about it because I don't think they had his likeness rights. So, because this head comes hidden, like almost hidden in the side of the or the bottom of the container, and you can barely even see, like when you're looking at him all packaged up, you can't even see the figure. So, you know, it's kind of nice that they did that. I'm happy that they did it because, you know, that other head, and I'm going to show it to you in a second as soon as I can find it. The other head is it looks like the artwork. It doesn't really look like He-Man. It definitely doesn't look like Dolph, you know, and I wanted my He-Man figure to look either like the He-Man that we're used to, you know, or Dolph, and then or the 2000 XX version, which that's my He-Man. Look at that ugly ass face. It looks like artworks that you've seen of He-Man, but no, no. And this is, remember, $50. So we're gonna start with He-Man, since I've already started with He-Man. We'll keep these two a little farther back, because Skeletor is dope, don't get me wrong, And he's part of the reason why I love the movie so much is because Frank Langella did his damn thing. But let's talk about He-Man. I've been a He-Man fan for a long time. I've had many He-Man toys over my lifetime, and I have a small, a modest Masters of the Universe collection. And I don't really want more than that. I'm good with what I have, you know. So He-Man looks pretty dope. The detailing on this is amazing. But I want to talk about my first issue with this figure. Now, many of the Super 7 figures, if you've been watching a lot of the coverage of Super 7's products, there's a lot of things that tend to be wrong with their figures, starting with like how well or how poorly they hold their swords. Like, you see what I did. I didn't hardly do anything. I just touched the blade. Doesn't hold it well. Lion-O had the same version, same issue. There were just many issues with them. He has this one oversized open hand that you cannot put the sword in because it's way open. Look at that. But that's for his pistol. So let me try this again. Put his hand in there. Now, it's not that he doesn't hold it. He just doesn't hold it well. You know, and I'll bring out my standard Mattel MOTU He-Man and show you, how all that works. But this is his big, this is an actual gun, strangely enough. I can't remember what the name of the gun is. I have to look into it. But anyway, so he holds his gun, which if you've watched the movie and you remember how he used the gun, oftentimes he used his sword to like counterweight his body while shooting this blaster. But the only thing he can hold is this blaster, and he doesn't even hold the blaster well. I paid $50 for this. And it frustrates me. Like, granted, this version of He-Man is going to sit on my movie shelf, where I have like Schwarzenegger and some Star Wars guys and Stallone and Bruce Lee and like lots of things. RoboCop. I've got Aliens and Predators and all that kind of shit. He's going to sit on that shelf, but I shouldn't have to worry that over time he's just going to drop his weapon. That's bullshit. It's a $50 figure. He is literally in the same, he cost more than my John Wick figure from Diamond Select, who holds all of his weapons like a fucking pro. No problems with this figure and holding his weapons. And he costs less than what? Half of what, this guy costs? That doesn't make any sense. And he came with more stuff, including the dog that started everything. And that's this is $24, $25. Head sculpt on point. Look at that shit. Super on point. It's just that he's bigger than the 6 inches that everybody wants every figure to be these days. I don't mind if he's a little bit tall. That's perfectly fine. But anyway, he shouldn't be that expensive. It just doesn't make sense. And I'm going to show you a lot about him. And, having bought him and owning him, it's nice. I have him already. I'm not going to complain. I went through the work to get him, But at the same time, for those of you who are on the fence, this is not worth it. So he comes with these two things. Okay, that's nice. The holster holds the gun really well. I don't mind about that. He even has a long sheath in his back for his sword, the power sword. The power sword itself is pretty nice. I was impressed. It's pretty simple, pretty nice. Heavy contrast to Skeletor's sword, but they kind of feel similar, in design. It's pretty nice. Which goes back to the twin swords, But you just do this, line it up, and slide. Sounds so bad. Line it up and slide it in. Oh, that is what she said, right? But yeah, fits in there perfectly. No issues. Looks good. He has two weapons that piss me off when they do this, because if you pay over $20 for a figure. He should come with extra hands just for these two things. He comes with, in his boot, you see that knife sticking out? It doesn't really sit in there perfectly. It sits at an angle. So this is cool. It's a little throwing dagger type deal. He can't hold it. Like it rests in his hand, but look. See that? Let me show you again. Look, handle. He can't hold it. Then he has, I mean, I guess you could do like Batman does with his batarangs and stick it in between his fingers, like so, like a cigarette or a giant cigar, and have him about to throw it. But you usually hold it by the tip of the blade to do that. You don't hold it by, you know, but I'm just for improvisation's sake. There you go. You really shouldn't have to go through this much just to get him to use a weapon that he came with. Oh, I forgot, I put sticky tack in there so it's holding properly. Then lastly, he comes with this little dagger right here. Sorry about that. Which sits in that thing perfectly. And if you notice, it's a tiny little power sword, like the cartoon power sword, or somewhat the Alcala version. Nah, more the TV show, because it's got the little nubs right there and everything. He can't hold this either. So there's a lot of issues with He-Man holding his weapons. Look at that. So, like, you know, what if I was one of those people who I wanted this to be my default He-Man, you know? Like, in my universe, I wanted to play with this guy. You can't really do much, because as soon as you make him clash swords, the most powerful man in the universe is going to drop his fucking blade. It's sad, you know? And now I'm going to bring the other He-Man so I can show you what I'm talking about, and you guys can see the difference. I might even put this sword in that one's hand so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I told you that the MOTU 2000, early 2000s series, that's my He-Man. So that's my favorite He-Man. Look at the size of the blade. Different type of blade, different style. So we're not talking style, we're talking mechanics. Look at how tightly this guy holds his blade. Still holding it. And now let's do the same thing with the other guy so that you can see what I'm talking about. The hand out. That shouldn't be a thing. You know what I mean? Some of us do actually play with these, and MOTU figures were made more for play and less for just standing around. So that's kind of unforgivable. Now, let's talk about other things, because I'm not going to really go through his articulation, because the only thing I have to tell you about his articulation is that it's the same as the other figures, and it's even more limited than some of the other figures. And actually, let me keep He-Man, the original one, out, or my He-Man out, so that you can see what I'm talking about here. So I had some issues right off the bat with this figure when it comes to articulation, and you know, I listened to, like I said, Toy Bro and Pixel Dan just gush and gush and gush unrealistically, because they're all caught up in the nostalgia, and it was getting old, because it was like, yeah, I know nostalgia's a thing, it's awesome to be nostalgic for stuff, but at the same time, sometimes certain figures don't live up to that nostalgia, you know what I mean? Like, the look is cool and having them in hand is cool, but they don't do what they need to do. So you see this belt? Part of it is sculpted into the trunks, like this side. But then this part that goes over his leg, because it hangs down lower than the trunks, you can kind of see right in there. Let me get up close so you can see what I'm talking about. Right up in here, you can kind of see like a little division. Let me see when I push it down if you can tell. You see that? See where the belt drops a little bit? Right there. You see that? You can see his skin right in there a little bit. It comes down, so this piece was glued on to this to allow for his belt to hang lower than his, you know, the gun belt to hang lower than his waist. And I get that. It's cool, right? What ended up happening, though, the first time I wanted him to stand this far apart, as you can see right here, it started to rip. Can you see that? Right there. Look at that. That was the first time I stood him up like this. And I'm gonna pull back just a little so you can see what I'm talking about. Shoulder width apart. I do this all the time with MOTU figures because they don't have very much posability, so I'll do it with the old school He-Man, no problem. Shoulder width. And that caused his belt to literally rip right there, and I'm gonna have to re-glue that. $50. My ninjas, when I say $50, that's not $50 worth of engineering, $50 worth of QC, $50 worth of just general, you know, anything. That's not it, you know? You're supposed to make sure that they can do the splits if necessary, that they can, excuse me, stand up the way that we need them to do. And remember, this is a $35 figure, and look at that. He can go farther than that if necessary. Look. Why is it that I get this with for 35 and for 50 I don't even get that? And it's the same engineering, but because they just sculpted on the base, you know, they used this as a base, added details on top of it, but didn't bother to engineer it. I don't know if you blame the Four Horsemen for that, or do we blame Super 7 in general? It's their project. You would think that as a company, Super 7 would have certain quality standards that they would be trying to make everything work towards, you know what I mean? When you really look at the figure and take it apart, not very much was added to the figure except new legs that are longer so that he can be taller, new forearms, because you have this armor here and this one is naked, which they could have also used from like Ular or something, and then the shoulder pads, the loincloth stuff, and the head. That's it. Everything else, this whole arm, everything up to here, up to the shoulder, the body, it's all old pieces, you know. And at this point, those pieces are over 10 years old, and we paid $50 for this. I mean, it really made me think about my purchase when I was done. I had buyer's remorse like a motherfucker. I mean, like, when it came to getting, you know, Catwoman here, she's not a super expensive figure. She's definitely not an $80 figure, and I didn't pay $80 for her. But with her single jointed elbows and knees, I was like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't pay $50, but I still felt a little, you know, like, fuck, you know, the Mafex one is on its way out, and I just bought this one, and mine had a piece missing on her little pack. At some point, I don't know when that was, I don't even remember if she didn't even come with it. I've been putting a piece of black, I have this like carbon fiber looking paper that I use to hang over it, but at some point there's a top piece that sits up here. You can see the two, you can see the little area that the top should clamp on, but that fell off somewhere, or it didn't come with it, so it closes and she doesn't have a top to it. It sucks. So I have a lot of buyer's remorse for this figure because it didn't have all the parts, and I didn't recognize that until months afterwards, you know. But I still feel like on a base level, she still can do many of the basic things that the you know, the Mezco figures do. But sculpt wise, this is where we can give them their praise, okay? Because it sounds like I'm super negative, but sculpt wise, this is where we can go nuts and we can say the Four Horsemen, as always, did the damn thing, because everything from head to toe that's new is so well sculpted, it's painful. So let's get up close on this guy and look at this. Chest. Look at all that detail. I can't really tell you what a lot of it is. It's dope detail. And this is special armor. This is armor that was crafted in the Great Forge with the fires of Granomir. And supposedly it's this like old, powerful, magical armor, which is pretty dope. They didn't explain that in the movie. This is just what he looked like, you know? Apparently in the original script, he's supposed to show up in the classic duds and then put these on when he becomes a rebellion leader. Because, the Masters get framed, essentially. Because Skeletor takes over and kind of makes them out to be evil. Which I was like, that is such a dope plot. But look at all that detail. So much detail, and the weathering and painting looks so good. With the belt buckle right there, looks great. You'll see there's some sort of dragon thing going on there. Detail on the holster looks really good. There's even little bits of detail on the sheath in the back. So, like, at least they went all over. They didn't just, they didn't just do a little bit of detail here and there. They did detail everywhere, which is great, and that part I give props to, from one artist to the next. Four Horsemen always do great work, and that's what always catches my attention. I mean, look at that. Slightly different boots, the cool knee pads and shin guards. It's dope. So, props to them for what they've done here. And then let's not forget this wonderful face. Let's look at this face again. Look at that. Looks right. The mullet of power looks really good. That is a serious mullet, man. He is the most Aryan. Ivan Drago with his mullet of power. I don't want innocent people to die. I have the power. It was so soft. I have the power. Overall, though, he looks great. They did a great job with him. I don't have much to complain about. I like what I see. Another piece that I can complain about is his neck joint is stuck. So, like, you see how his head is stuck tilting? No matter what I do, that is the relaxed position it comes back to. The ball joint itself is stuck going that way. I can't get it free. I tried my best to reach in there and do stuff and see if there's glue. I might have to try again, but a lot of times when you're pressing against that, you run the risk of screwing up this part of the neck, that rim, and I don't want to do that. So, yeah, strange stuff, strange stuff. It really bothered me. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But overall, he looks good. Quality for a shelf piece, He's gonna be one of those that's gonna sit on the shelf. And let me go over his card. The card is pretty dope. Rebel Leader He-Man. Let me move back a little more so you can see all of that. This is a cross cell where you can see all the other characters and stuff. Anyway, He-Man, Renegade. It's so weird. Skeletor. Gotta get away from Skeletor. Anyway, having finally stolen one of the Cosmic Key prototypes created by Gwildor, he banished his brother, King Randor, into Despondos. In this story, it's their brothers, which is cool. I think that's typically how they do it. I know there's some stories that have gone off in another direction where it's He-Man and what's-his-face that are related in another way, but yeah, him and Randor. So he banished him into Despondos, and then he used the evil doppelganger android Faker, who wasn't even in the film, to trick the people of Eternia into believing He-Man was a Gar traitor all along, and their king's assassin. So forced at last to reveal his true identity as Prince Adam, He-Man led the renegade masters of the universe in a rebellion against Skeletor's despotic rule. Wearing armor crafted in the Great Forge with the fire of Granomir and the Spellian metal masters of Lord Dactyls. I wanted that figure too. He's the big like dragon looking dude. Bat looking dude. He-Man became a symbol of hope on Eternia like never before. While his clash with Skeletor took him to the stars and beyond, He-Man eventually became king of Eternia and regained his youth during the events of the Reawakening, when a resurgent Skeletor stole the powers of the old gods to become nearly omnipotent. He-Man donned his rebel armor once more for enchantments placed upon it both by the sorceress and the goddess, and protected him from Skeletor's divinely enhanced powers. All this shit was in the original version, original script for the film. So yeah, for me, like, having this figure, it represents a lot of that. You know what I mean? Because like I said, to me, in my world, in my crazy ass imagination, that shit happened. Now let's get to the reason why I even took a look at these figures in the first place. I have always wanted this version of Skeletor in toy form because he just looks so good. And we'll get to this guy. He's shining a little too much. Trying to get the spotlight from the other figures because he's so shiny. He's so shiny. But no, we're not gonna look at him yet. We're gonna look at him last. Now this figure here, there are a lot of wonderful things about him. Lots of wonderful details, and I think it's time to get up close to him. Let's get up close. Look at the staff. Holy shit. I mean, look at that. Look at that. Look at all the detail on his coat and his armor and all that. And the cape with the giant hood. This dude's wearing 3 hoods. Or whatever that is. Or maybe that's just a cowl or like collar piece. But it looks so good. I mean, everything looks so good. I mean, look at that old ass staff. Look at the gauntlets that he's got on. You can tell, like, equal attention to detail was paid to Skeletor as it was to He-Man, so he doesn't feel like he was somehow neglected in comparison. But I mean, they really did it up, you know? I was so impressed with this figure that it made me go and say, like, you know what? I'm gonna get all of them. Because initially I was only gonna get He-Man and I was only gonna get Skeletor, both versions of Skeletor. And then the more I looked at him, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna get everybody. Almost everybody. I have Karg and Sarad. I got the Sarad years ago, and then I got or maybe I got both of them years ago, because I have the blue version of Karg. But yeah, this is also based on the original concept art by William Stout. Really good detail, you know? Again, the part that bothers me... Actually, before I even get into the part that bothers me, let's look at Homeboy's face up close. He deserves that. I remember when I was a kid, I was intrigued by the movie so much because I wanted it to be like what I was watching all those years, and scared by this face because look at that shit. Look at those eyes. Look at those eyes. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Neil! Look at that. So much detail. It almost doesn't even feel like the kind of detail that you get on a MOTU Classics figure. I mean, even the paint job. Look at like how there's still kind of like flesh on there. Just a little bit of flesh. You see it right by his mouth. Right there. It just, oh man, I always love that design. That's how you do the transition from 2D to, you know, live action. and make him have weight to him. And then the performance on top of it just nailed it. It just cemented everything. You know, if you didn't feel it, something's wrong with you. But he's dope. He does not have a sheath for his sword, which I showed you earlier. And strangely enough, he holds this sword better than He-Man holds his sword. So when they have their sword fights, Skeletor is going to beat the shit out of He-Man, because He-Man can't even hold his sword. Look at that. See me? I'm hitting the sword out of his hand, and he's not dropping the sword. That was the cosmic key, sorry, but look at that. So when they have their fights, prepare to watch He-Man lose his sword. Look at that, even shaking it. Skeletor is the better fighter in this version, which he wasn't really the better fighter in the movie. Sad. But they did a really good job capturing the essence of this character and all the details on this character. Alright, now let's take a look at this cosmic key. This is a wonderful piece of sculpt work here. So impressive. I mean, look at the details. It even has the little, let's get up close so you can see that. See the red and green up top, and then the yellow over there, and then the green again, and the yellow and the red. Little bits of gold. I mean, they really did the damn thing here. So it's as though Skeletor fares even better than He-Man. It's pretty damn dope. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. It's just weird, like, seeing this, you know what I mean? And then remembering that cheesy-ass movie and how it was used. But it's great, and they did such a good job. Overall, Skeletor fares well. This Skeletor is legit. I don't really have any issues with him, other than he should have had a skinnier body type. But I know it's MOTU, so they get that pass in that respect to a degree. The problem is the cost doesn't reflect the fact that we are getting the same body over and over, because all of a sudden this has become like a, I don't know, like a specialty item almost, you know? So we're just paying out the wazoo for this, and it just doesn't make sense to me. It just feels like we're being robbed, you know? And I don't dig that. I like when I get a deal. Sorry. I like when it's obvious that I'm getting a deal and there's no gimmicks. You know, I hate gimmicks. I talk about this all the time. Gimmicks suck. And the gimmick with MOTU has always been that they have that super buff body type, but in certain cases it doesn't fit. That's why I always dug the 2000XX version of Skeletor. Simply because he has, I mean, he's a little old. You can see he's yellowing. But, come on, homie. What are you doing? Custom cape from the good old days. Back when I was making those more often and people were a little bit more interested and we weren't so oversaturated with custom capes. But do you see how he's got that like semi-emaciated look in his torso? And even his muscles, like his flesh is a little bit baggy. And I'll show you up close. Like, look at right there on his thigh. The quads are. You can even see it on his biceps. It's like a little bit of bagginess in there. And even when you look at his torso, see how it kind of caves in up there? Because he is Skeletor, and it makes sense, you know. And look at that face. Ooh, I love this figure. Always thought this was dope. I mean, look at how demonic that looks. That looks terrifying. But it fits. It fits in league with what you're seeing here. You know what I mean? You can see what they were going for when they kind of updated the look both times, you know? And so, like I said, I am a fan of MOTU, and I have been collecting for a very long time. Let me show you Classics Skeletor next to the movie Classics Skeletor, the movie Ultimates. And that's the other thing. It's supposed to be an Ultimate, at least from what I remember, or something like that. He doesn't really come with very much, but I mean, what's here is well done. But there you go. From the original design to the film that came shortly after. I need you guys to be back a little bit farther. And there we are. Yeah, it looks good. I mean, can't really complain about detail, and you can see all the things they have in common. You can see the ram horns on the Havoc staff. They both have the hood. They have something draping. I mean, he has the crossbones. I don't know why they didn't do that here, but some of that detail, some detail is sitting on his chest. So you do have like chest armor that kind of connects with what's going on his shoulders. And then you have the open midriff. I mean, even though this is covered up, you have a cool belt with pieces hanging down. I mean, it almost feels more, this feels more believable than that for a design of like the main villain. You know what I mean? Like, when you put that guy next to this He-Man, if they had given us something like this, it wouldn't have seemed off. Meaning, if they had started the story with him looking like this, and then somewhere in the story he had to change his armor and end up looking like this, I mean, we all would have bought it. We would have been in heaven like, oh my god, this is amazing. You know what I mean? Because it's not too far off. A guy dressed like that could exist in the same world as this guy. You know what I mean? I mean, it's barbarian shit. You can get away with that, you know? But anyway, that's not the point of this video. The point of the video is for us to just kind of go over these guys. And that is what we are doing. So, Dark Despot Skeletor. Let's look at the back of his package, which is actually pretty dope. Ooh-wee, I'm sorry. I screwed up and put him a little bit too over to the side when I need to put him over here. And have that standing up like so. Of course. Dark Despot Skeletor. Skeletor triumphant after finally using the stolen cosmic key to beam his army of orcs, skeletons, centurions, and robot knight battalion into the palace of Eternos. Skeletor claimed the scepter of power. Adorned in the black robes of the ancient Gar kings and the armor forged by Spikor in the heat of the magic fire of Dragoman. That was the guy who I was confusing with Dactus earlier. Skeletor raises his Havoc staff, itself transformed with the secret stolen from the Faceless One, as a symbol of Skeletor's new Imperial Order. Now, isn't it cool to find out that his staff transformed from this into, you know, that you see up there because of, you know, the dark magic that he's using. I love this, and why wasn't this in the film? You know what I'm saying? That would have been so dope. Anyway, while his fight with his rival He-Man reached into the cosmos, Skeletor eventually fell in battle, only to be reborn again years later with the magic of his secret bride, Evelyn. His secret bride. Look at all this development that we didn't get. Who fashioned her own regal attire after that of her mother, Queen Maligna. More information. I didn't know shit about Queen Maligna. I would have loved the figure of her. His deadly visage temporarily misshapen by the effects of the life-giving scepter of power, Skeletor regained his kingly garments and once again united the armies of darkness under his skull sigil. Now facing both twins of power, both He-Man and She-Ra, on Eternia, Skeletor sought new dark alliances in a plot to steal the divinity of the old gods, including the evil snake goddess Serpentia. Man, they needed to try harder with some of these names. Serpentia. I know it was the 80s. Wow, I don't know how I'm managing to knock down things behind me. But this is the kind of characterization, the kind of story, the kind of epic, storytelling, the epic yarn that we want. You know what I mean? This is what we wanted. This is what I imagined while watching that movie as a child, is all the epic shit that could have happened that did not happen because of the lazy-ass script that we got. So, I'm happy to see this stuff because all this is from the original script, which is dope. You know what I mean? It's literally one of the things that was even part of why this movie even perseveres in my, as I get older, because I can see them in live action, but I'm imagining what they would be doing had the story went in the directions that I wanted to go in. Now, next, we're going to talk about the God Skeletor figure. Alright, I'm starting this way with God Skeletor because I want you to pay attention to the costume. Oy, oy, oy. Look at this costume. Well, I guess we can talk about the his write-up, but I want you to look at that costume. Look at the details, look at the tassels. When I was looking at the toy, I was saying to myself, I know that there were differences, like more details, more differences, more things that needed to be there, as well as things that, they kind of have in common. Because, this is God Skeletor, so things need to be a little bit more on the, amazing side, you know what I'm saying? But I figured I would just point that out so you guys could see that. And then let's talk about the story. I apologize with my crappy camera work. I'll probably just cut back to what I need to cut to. God Skeletor, evil deity of destruction. After his epiphany at the Celestial Library, Skeletor hatched a complex plan that transcended even his death and resurrection. Sounds like Skeletor. He would do some crazy, overly complicated shit to gain power because that's the kind of character he is. Scheming to steal the power and the knowledge of the gods, Skeletor absorbed energies from the Star Tree, which transmuted his blood into godly ichor. Okay. He deceived Adam into restoring Castle Grayskull and tricked the evil snake goddess into divulging the language of the gods, enabling him to decipher the divine secrets of Grayskull's great eye. That's the thing that you see in the film that's behind him that eventually does give him those powers. Once, he puts the Sword of Power, locks it into Castle Grayskull. Forcing He-Man to surrender the Sword of Power, before the Great Eye opened, Skeletor was sublimely transformed. Clad in golden armor and horned helm, he proclaimed his godhood and demanded that He-Man kneel. Refusing, He-Man broke his bonds and grabbed hold of his blade, calling upon the power of Grayskull and battling Skeletor in the fiercest clash the universe had ever seen. Don't you wish that it was the fiercest clash that the universe had ever seen? You know what I mean? With them swinging at each other, and mountains are falling down and shit, them jumping and flying around and flipping and hitting and explosions and people being thrown back by the sheer power of their blows. That would have been amazing, right? That's what I imagine in my mind, you know what I mean? That's how I always played with these characters, With a titanic blow, He-Man shattered Skeletor's Havoc Staff, closing the great eye forever and reverting Skeletor to his mortal state. Furious, the villain rushed wildly at his arch enemy, but fell through Grayskull's trap door, which is part of the the playset, into the Dwell of Souls. Later, from within the darkness, a voice intoned, "I'll be back." We all know what they're talking about. This stuff is dope. You know what I mean? Like, I don't normally care about these write-ups like that anymore because I've mastered the art of coming up with my own stories for these guys. But when it comes to these old-ass characters that I grew up on, that kind of got me into Greek mythology and other stuff like that, I love these write-ups, especially when it deals with such an epic script. Could you imagine if they had followed the original script? I mean, it probably would have been an expensive-ass movie, but it would have been amazing to see. Anyway, pretty cool, huh? They have a lot in common, and they did actually add some of those details that you see, like these tassels here. They added them because regular Skeletor doesn't have it. But one thing you'll notice as I put all this together, and I'm gonna move the picture out of the way so we can just focus on the two figures, is that it's just a repaint with a head swap and that added detail of the loincloth piece in the center and the tassels, and everything else is identical. And it pissed me off when I was listening to Toy Bro and, you know, Pixel Dan and all these other He-Man regulars talk about this figure like it was such an improvement from this. And don't get me wrong, it's the essence of what we saw in the film, essentially. And the details are there, and I'm not dissing it. I just wanted more of a difference between these two. I mean, the belt is the same. The cloak and the robes are the same, but they said these are godly robes. These are kingly robes. So if these are kingly robes, we should be going all out with the details on this guy. You know what I'm saying? Now, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of detail, and surface detail is dope. It's more detail than what we normally got on any of the MOTU classics. So I love the detail, you know? But I mean, down to the cape, it's the same exact shit. The only difference is the majestic ass, crazy, literally batshit crazy, overly designed, godly helm. That thing looks amazing. Even the Havoc staffs are the same. I thought they would evolve this even more because it's the godly version. I know in the movie this didn't change, so it is screen accurate for them to do that. At least I don't remember it changing. But the helmet itself, whew, look at that. I'm gonna move Skeletor out the way so we can, you know, regular Skeletor, so that the glory, all eyes can be on God Skeletor. It could be, I wish he came in a pointing hand so we could be like, kneel! Kneel! I'll never kneel to you, Skeletor. Yes, you will! Shit had me rolling. Yes, you will! Yes, you will! Skeletor looking all crazy. Look at that. Kneel! Kneel! Frank Langella fucking killed it, man. I'm telling you, he killed it. Like, that's the voice that I want to hear when I see Skeletor. I don't want to hear the "Thank you, He-Man. He-Man." I don't want to hear that shit anymore. And I know it's classic, and I know some people will be, you know, offended at the sheer idea of someone not liking the classic voice. That shit's too goofy and stupid. It's like Bebop and Rocksteady. Like, I get it. They kind of made it for kids, you know, at some point. But I want more of a menacing villain you know, and that's what Frank Langella brought to the table. He made Skeletor scary. Let's get up close on this bad boy. Look at all that detail. Look at this head sculpt, man. Look at that. We gotta marvel at the head sculpt because that's the number one different thing about him. The eyes being all the way back there. I mean, just look at that. That is nuts. The bat wings up there. It could be a castle. You know what I mean? Like, if you were to just cover that, cover his face and stuff, that could be a whole castle of something. That's just nuts. And then I like this detail right here, where as we go down on the tassels, you see them, they become skulls. Also, all the different little squares here all have different details in them, almost as if it tells a story. I would have wished that they went the extra and made it all tell a story or something, you know. It made them completely different from the ones on the other Skeletor, because that's the most annoying part about all this, is that it's not the details that the other Skeletor has. I mean, it's not different from the other Skeletor's details. I mean, even these bracer things are exactly the same as regular Skeletor, man. And it's like, couldn't you have given him like more like epic looking greaves or whatever, you know? Like, oh man. And I get it, you know, when they say, oh, it's for cost, it's a $50 figure. This is why I gripe at this shit, and this is why I don't really like Super 7. They haven't won me over yet, because despite doing some of my favorite properties, you know, like they redid Thundercats, and then people are coming to find out that essentially they're just reselling the old Hasbro shit. I mean, Mattel shit. And that sucks, because you want to get those figures because they represent many of our childhoods. But anyway, this is the figure. This is all you get. He doesn't even come with a special sword. No, which he didn't have in the movie, in their defense. Doesn't come with an alternate head. Doesn't come with a different Havoc staff with more crazy shit going on. Nothing else. No effect parts. Nothing. Not even like extra pieces you could use for He-Man. Nothing. He is all just this. Just golden paint everywhere, which is awesome. But essentially you're getting the previous Skeletor again in a gold paint deco. Which is, you know, I almost want to give them a pass because it's pretty much what they did in the movie. But the movie had more, there were details, lots of details that instead of getting those details, you got the other details, but in gold. And it seems like, you know, a lot of people don't think about this stuff. They don't care. So they didn't really point this out very much. But for me, you know, like, I love my movie stuff. And my movie stuff usually stands out from my comic book or my cartoon stuff. And not by a little bit, by a lot. So I wanted to, you know, more. Now, don't get me wrong. These two figures stand out a hell of a lot more than the figure that they represent. You know what I mean? Like, there's really no comparison. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are leaps and bounds better. And this is partially why I am so hardcore about movie figures. Because when you look at what you get, you know, these two figures are the same character, but look at all the detail on this guy versus this. You know? Rightfully so, this figure costs more than this one, you know? But when you think about it, like when you break it down and you really think about it, the fact that this was made by Hasbro, I mean, Jesus, why do I keep saying that? This one was made by Mattel, and this one was made by another company. It makes you wonder, why does the other company get more expensive figures? Is it really how the licensing deal is going to work out? a third party makes a Mattel product and it costs more than the Mattel product, and they used less, quality, lower quality plastics and lower quality rubbers and all that sounded bad, but the materials are all lower quality than what you normally got from the actual company of origin. That's strange to me. Now, if you love the movie, then these figures are worth it. If you're a hardcore He-Man person, then these will be worth it, because the idea is to simply have the characters. You know what I mean? Like, that's all you're interested in. That's the reason why you're here, is to get these characters. So, like, the whole issue with some of this stuff not being of the best quality, with the belt ripping and things like that, you guys are going to ignore that shit. And I say this judging from the habits of my fellow collectors. When I watch and I see the way these things sell out, the way you can't find them, the way on the secondary market, every time one of these new MOTU figures come out, as soon as they hit the secondary, which is usually within a day or so of them coming out, and sometimes that's even before they actually are released. You see listings on the secondary where they're going for stupid money, and it's dumb, it's unfair. Unfortunately, now that is the way it is, and I hate it. But I recognize that people like me don't control the market. Reasonable people are not controlling the market. So, Super 7 is going to continue this stuff. Like, I've seen recently, they released their Thundercats figures and their Thundercats Ultimates. And though they come with a whole bunch of nice accessories, the figures themselves are the Mattel figures, complete with the same issues that the Mattel figures had however many years ago the originals came out, and didn't manage to take the world by storm. Yet the Ultimates cost $50 or more, and the originals were like $35 or something, just like with the MOTU Classics. Same bucks, and it's still Super 7 pulling its usual shit. Ninja Turtle figures, light, chintzy plastic, hollow figures to keep the weight down, and it's just a lot of accessories, so you have options, and that seems to be amazing most of the nostalgia-fueled fans. But people who like great figures are not impressed, because their figures are actually cheaper than what Mattel was doing, as far as the quality of what you're getting. So it makes you wonder, why is it that, why can't I get these for the right price, So I don't know. It's a lot of a mixed bag in this situation, because I love that movie. Like, I love to hate that movie, but I love it because when I was a kid, there was a part of me that was like imagining these guys in other scenarios that I would have played out if I had these toys back then. And I never got them because they never really existed. I played out the movie with my He-Man figures that I had at the time, but I wanted this look. I even made a cape for my He-Man back in the day. I remember that shit. I made a cape out of a handkerchief. It's like a red handkerchief, like a maroon handkerchief. That's another thing. $50, right? In the movie and even on the card art, He-Man has this maroonish looking cape. And it has this like gold, well, in the movie I think it was gold. This detailing going around the bottom of it, right? Where's that on this guy? Just red. All this stuff, it's like when you've been collecting figures like this, and this is an $80 figure. Shit. But when you're getting figures like this and this, where it's like an upgrade from the DCUC to this, where you're getting a premium action figure, how the fuck can these guys upcharge you for what they're giving you? And how the fuck do you guys say that that's legit, enough for what you're paying? Like, I work fucking hard. I sometimes have to take abuse in my jobs. So for me to give someone my hard-earned money for something I'm supposed to enjoy, and for it to not be the total package, you know, get the fuck out of here. And I'm tired of, like, in the comments, I get these folks who refuse to listen to the message. I'm not saying that if you got these, that you shouldn't appreciate what you have. If you're happy with this level of quality and you don't notice the difference, you shouldn't even be listening to me. You shouldn't even be watching my videos. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be watching any of our videos, because you're doing what you want to do, and it doesn't matter what we say. The point of the matter is for people who are wanting to understand and appraise the level of quality of the things that they're going to pay, whatever the price is, they look to us to do that. And in order for us to give them the full picture, we have to appraise the quality. It's not just nostalgia, 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 because that's all I fucking hear these days. Everything is nostalgia. And I'm like, look, they've done that shit. That ship has sailed. We get it. Now, nerd culture, quote unquote, it's just pop culture. Stop acting like it's a special, weird, different thing, and just recognize that. It's pop culture. We don't need to pay a premium for shit that now is commonplace. There was a point in time where this kind of stuff was not commonplace. That's why we used to pay a premium for it. Now, every movie, action movie or not, comic book or not, based on a boy's toy line from the 80s or not, just about every movie has figures to it. You know, and if it doesn't, it will. Because they've recognized that it's a market for action figures for just about everything, you know? It'll crack me up when they start making action figures of, like, romance movies and shit, you know what I mean? For those folks who want that. Maybe statues or something, but something in that vein. I mean, it's a possibility. It's something that's out there. It's something that can be done. But, like, when you look around, there's dramatic shit that doesn't have any action, hardly any action. And they've made figures for it, you know? There's TV shows, like Golden Girls have action figures. The fuck? So this shit, we shouldn't be paying a premium for this. NECA has made its whole career off of licensed film figures. So, you know, Super 7 making a handful of figures like this, we shouldn't be paying a premium. If we weren't paying a premium, these figures would be the fucking bomb. Did you see the Conan figures that they released? They look like ass. And you're gonna pay a premium for those because one of them has the open hands so you can do the cool Conan pose and stuff, but you don't quite have Arnold's likeness. Yet NECA is putting out figures that look exactly like Arnold, and you guys are gonna pay more than the 24 to, you know, 28, maybe $30 that you could pay for a NECA figure of Arnold. You're gonna pay that for this nonsense made out of cheaper plastic with zero paint. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get the Super 7 appeal, because it feels like, even though they have licenses that we like, they don't put the kind of love into the figures that, you know, other companies are doing. You know, Diamond Select is doing amazing things. They've always done amazing things. Freaking DC Direct, or DC Collectibles, rest in peace. They're doing amazing things. Hasbro, as much as I rag on Hasbro, they're doing amazing things. And they're not in every case are they, you know, like, destroying our wallets. So, you know, like I said, if these were not premium figures, if we weren't paying a premium for these figures here, they would be the bomb. If these were $30, maybe $25 figures, I'd be like, holy shit, because that's what you have here. Like I said, he can barely hold his sword, and he can't hold the other knives, and he can only hold this gun in this hand. If you put this gun in the other hand, it's going to stretch this hand out more, and then he won't be able to hold his sword at all. So a serious hand swap is in order for him to be quality He-Man, you know, battle ready. Skeletor fares better. It seems like he got the better end of the stick, because he would hold his Havoc staff with both hands, so they gave him tight gripping hands so he can hold that staff properly. And that's pretty dope, because that's what the standard Skeletor had. So again, if you love that movie and you love your, your 80s fare, and you're, an action junkie like me, and Dolph Lundgren is one of your heroes, then get this. Get this set. You'll be happy with it. If you are strictly looking at the figures as characters and you want, the best representation, or the best, because this is the only representation of these characters, these versions from the film. But if you're looking for like quality figures, like really well done figures, these aren't them. Maybe Skeletor, maybe the Skeletors are considered well done, but the He-Man figure is not as well done as he needs to be, because in a lot of ways he falls short, and you could just stick with the standard one and get the same, feeling. You could actually even put together your own one if you were to get both of them and then take all this gear off and put it on this one. The problem that you would run into is that because it's Dolph Lundgren, he's actually huge. He's really tall, and if you look at them, he's a little bit taller than standard He-Man. Like, look, I'll put them neck and neck, and you can see what I'm talking about, or back to back. You see Dolph's shoulders are higher than, standard He-Man's shoulders. You see that? Top of the head. It's taller than standard He-Man. Because, Dolph as an actor was giant, so it fit. But, that's pretty much my story, and I'm sticking to it. I love the designs, though, and I think that the Four Horsemen did a great job capturing the designs and honoring William Stout's concept art. Yeah, and that's really about it. So, yeah, this has been my look at the Super 7 MOTU William Stout collection based on the film Masters of the Universe. And yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag. Skeletor comes out on top. He-Man looks great standing still, but there's a little bit to be desired, and it still hasn't completely won me over for Super 7 at all. So yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And as always, you guys have been great. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and peace outside.